You are listening to River West Radio on WXRWLP 104.1 FM Milwaukee. Support for this program comes from Collectivo Coffee, dedicated to keeping Milwaukee's bike riding community rolling with bike pumps available for use in all Collectivo cafes. More info is available in cafes and at collectivocoffee.com. Excellent. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you listeners. Gabe, thank you for calling in. Our man is on the phone from out of state, out west, where they make steaks, Kansas City, somewhere out there. God bless you, Gabe. We'll be getting to you. And if you're listening live, it is a gorgeous evening in Milwaukee, sunny out. We're out on Center Street. People walk up and down, cars up and down, sights to see most definitely. We want to thank Zavala Play and Martin Hallinger for always keeping this ship on course so that we reach the shores that we need to reach. I mean, they really put their heart and soul into it, their expertise, their time, everything. It's just amazing, to say the least. And there are incredible people out there. If you're ever stuck with some bad apples, God's made 8 billion of us so far that are standing on 2 feet as we speak. So, that's always a great thing. There's lots of good people out there. And anyway, man. So thank you for joining us. And, we did a DJ thing at the River West 24 for the bike race. It's kind of amazing because I don't have much of a memory for some things. I was sitting on my living room couch. I said to myself, my man, what are you doing? Your friends are in the next community over, right around the corner. The melancholic sun, the twilight is playing golden on their hair, and they're all out there. I said, oh, man, so I got in the vehicle. Sure enough, there they all are, just around the corner. So, depression is compression, and then you just got to think your way out of it, and voila, 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 voila. So, yeah, I don't have the extemporaneous gift that Gabe Van Handel does. He's a mastermind of facts and deep insight. I mean, that's the way his brain is wired. His neural connections exist to make those leaps of highly informed, not jargon, but highly informed insights, and I've already used that word. So, yeah, anyway, and that's one thing when you're writing and so forth. Weak writing is when you, reuse the same word in the same paragraph, and it happens with professional books on occasion, and if you are a writer, you definitely want a thesaurus nearby because you just do not want to repeat the same word. That's just not a good sign of writing there at all. Played some good music at the River West 24. We were under the bridge. I call it the Trocadero Bridge because there's a restaurant there by the same name. I know it has another name, and I had the good fortune of playing the Menahan street band. Now, I'm not sure if the last two words are correct because I don't have the album in front of me, but a colleague, a dear colleague provided that album, and this colleague is on the money with music. Really knows their stuff, and just a pleasure because hell is other people's music. It really is, but this person is so on the money that it is a smooth ride every time, and that colleague provided the, I believe it's the Menahan Street Band, and the people there were digging it. It was just mellow, beautiful music, and I interlaced it with Chicago, which was, I think that made for a really, really, really good mix. So, absolutely. And, well, let's see. We usually let Gabe out of the gate around 7:12. Before going on the air here, I was listening to America Live, Tin Man, and that 12-string sounded heavenly, so that's good stuff. I always got the headphones on, and, Martin obviously came to check the board, make sure everything was copacetic, and he just allowed me to continue listening to that. I was listening to Allman Brothers Blue Sky, and then America Tin Man. Last night I attempted, because I usually don't get to see films, so last night I attempted to see a nonfiction film, Dancer, I believe about this Ukrainian ballet dancer who kind of left the scene maybe at 19 and came back, or something like that. I don't know. You'd have to check the facts, actually, but it didn't get that far. But I did fall asleep to radio dramas, which was a great thing, and I wake up all hours of the night, and when I fell asleep to radio dramas. You listen acutely to the repartee, the exchange of dialogue, and the overall story structure. So anyway, when I woke back up, they were doing a reading, I guess, of Jules Verne's Journey to the Center of the Earth, something like that. They must have changed program after 11 at night, because I believe that's what they were talking about, or reading from the book. I don't know. I was in a half daze, but that appeared to be the case. So... oh man, I cannot tell you what a pleasure it is to have so many libraries here along the lake communities. There's North Shore Library, there's Whitefish Bay Library, there's Shorewood Library, there's East Side Library, all in a row. Heaven, theater books, films, audio sets. It's just incredible. They got Book Nook. Books for sale, all of that kind of stuff, and I'm deeply involved in Simon Gray's The Early Diaries about his making of the play. He wrote The Common Pursuit, Harold Pinter directed it, and what an incredible book on the making of a play. And I'm concerned, it's dude, it's summer, man. This really feels like a autumn book. Even the cover is like a pale burgundy, and I'm thinking, man, this has reminded me of Fallen Leaves, but because of the page count, it will take me definitely into the early fall and into the actually borderlands of winter, and I'm maybe even into December. We'll see. But I read a lot of books at the same time. I'm about done with the Greg Allman bio, which is one of the really, really cool musical memoirs. It's not a bio, it's a memoir written with someone. And I like this one because he gives some insights that a lot of memoirs don't, about what he thinks about such and such a band. I think it's, he's writing it maybe toward the tail end of the road, and just says some things maybe he wouldn't have said earlier on. But the point of it is what I love about that stuff is the way we make everything so mystical, so untouchable, so iconic, and then to have someone just say something like in real terms what a real person would say with no one listening is hilarious. And I really appreciate that, what he actually thinks about other bands and people's playing and the way the encounters went down and so forth. I think that's pretty cool. So I'm about to wrap that one up. And also that reminds me of Muscle Shoals, the documentary. What a great documentary on that recording studio down in Alabama. It's they got the horrible documentaries, with the pounding of the beats, the quick cutting, the graphics. It's like a psychological torture show. And I know this is a very specific style that's has metastasized into the nonfiction genre, and it's horrifying. So something mature like Muscle Shoals, adult and laid back and deep with texture, man, that's on the money. But that quick cutting, those bombastic hammerings of music and graphics, it's truly it's a psychological torture show, man. Just do not dig that at all. No good from my perspective. From you're on crack, you fell on your head, you're in third grade, it's oh man, this is just like peanut butter and jelly, Everyone sees things differently, definitely. So, and we had Center Street Days here, another outstanding effort by River West Radio, and the people were out. We did our thing at 5 o'clock, but I got caught up into this thing, man, definitely of my own accord. So I asked for it and I got it, certainly. But that's what I was, my man. Hey, I got a newspaper for you. I don't have it on me, but I had you in mind. You could submit your poetry, your drawing, your short essays. Okay, it's from Echo Park, in Los Angeles. So you and Steve each get a copy, okay? Did you lose your glasses? Or are you too hip? Okay, don't keep rubbing your eyes, my man. No, that's the way to, see the eye doctor. Like, why are my eyes all red? I'm serious, dude. Keep your fingers out of your eyes. You eating carrots and stuff? Okay, good. Okay, good, good. My man, he's a Cine East. He's a scholar. He just walked in the door, noticed him without his spectacles, made inquiries, got answers. So absolutely. And let's see. So anyway, I attempted to see Dancer last night. We'll attempt probably tomorrow night to see it. And also what I was mentioning too is that going through the New York Times, hey, lots of exciting films each and every week, and one of them is entitled Columbus. Takes place in Columbus, Indiana. It's about modernist architecture, and it's like a two-hander, two people. Their ideologies. I haven't seen it, but these are basic assumptions provided by the newspaper. So, yeah, I tell you, man, that New York Times really lays it on the line, and so do other film periodicals. It's, Joe Blow really ain't going to tell you much off the street, but those fine journals certainly will. So, people are so talented, have such amazing. Not stories to tell because we're not in third grade. I mean, stories are made up so many lives to share. Let's put it to you that way. So that works. So, and also Arthur Schnitzler. I have the great fortune of getting a collection of 4 of his plays. He wrote as a Traum novella. I think that translates to dream novel. That is what Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut is based on. The Arthur Schnitzler novella from the mid-20s. And so yeah, it's a great book. I read it. Actually, there is a book entitled Eyes Wide Open. Oh wait, no, actually there's 2 of them. Eyes Wide Open deals with the screenwriter and Stanley Kubrick's collaboration on the making of Eyes Wide Shut. Great book about the writing of Eyes Wide Shut, and it's called Eyes Wide Open. I hope my man's all right out there. He just took a spill on his bike, man. We're in your corner, sir. He's going to be okay. So what I was referring to, there's also a book with the Eyes Wide Shut screenplay and Arthur Schnitzler's novella along with it, and that's a heck of a read. So if you're a fan of Eyes Wide Shut, I just recommended 2 great books on that. So good stuff. But I think that my Gabe, dude, give me one more minute. So yeah, what I do is I write all of these screenplays, all of these plays on legal pad, and then I sit there and transcribe them. So when I'm not in a creative mode, then I'm more into a patternistic one. I just sit there and type all day. And I was at one of the dream coffee shops at Silver Spring, actually probably documented where the sun does set, so it's pretty wicked, man. It's like, wow, this is like being in a dream. I'll just be typing away. And I did begin, I'll get to you, Gabe, Rachel Cusk's Transit. Is that you, Zav? Have a great night, man. Zav is a powerful soul. He is one of the galvanizing forces in River West, and without Zav, this community would have one of the largest holes in its heart, a void that probably would never be filled again. I'm not giving you an elegy, dude. I'm giving you a compliment. Have a good night. Or eulogy. So anyway. So I got in my vehicle, because I was actually looking for Rachel Cusk's outline, but it wasn't there, so I got her new book, Transit, and I just sat in the vehicle and started reading it, and I was like mesmerized. So I actually ended up at a coffee shop just to continue reading that. So that was highly spectacular. I mean, yeah, that's my kind of writing, that very ethereal look upon the world that these people inhabit in their inner thinking and all of that. It's like, oh man, this is it for me. And Mondays, of course, start with the New York Times book review. man, that's like being in heaven with that cup of coffee. Sundays, I sit there and I read through the arts and entertainment. And Ted, have a great night, my man. You're a good soul, dude. Be strong. So Ted just walked past. Okay, Gabe, I know you're waiting out there, and we got to get to you. And so yeah, all of that stuff. And just one other quick thing is that I've got at the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design, there's an exhibition, and I was asked to be in it. And I showed up with my script pages, and we went downstairs, and dude says, oh, they're still putting together the whole gallery space, all of the artists and that. And he says, we have these open. I said, and I'm thinking, man, I just got these script pages. He said, you can have this area. And I said, you could choose between those 4. I said, man, I'll take that one. So now I got this whole area to fill like by Friday, but I'm going to put like script pages maybe on black poster board or something like that. So we'll get something rolling. It was a trip, man, 'cause like I said, I didn't know what was going on, and now we got that whole space. So that was a killer way to start a day. So Gabe, man, enough of this zaniness. We're going to put you on the air. My man, are you still there?
I, Mark, am thoroughly enjoying your discussion, your conversation, your monologue, your exploration into all things Borchardt, all things River West, all things Milwaukee. Mark, this is one of the most positive and entertaining and thoroughly humorous and well-spoken entries you've ever done into the show. And I was just sitting there. Every time you're saying, like, Gabe will get you, I'm thinking, don't worry. I wish I, had this means to correspond with you, because I know when the volume's down on my end, it's like I sometimes have these messages I want to relay to you. And on my end, I'm just thinking, Mark, don't worry.
Hey, Naomi.
Everything is
yes.
So more than gravy on this end. Like, man, listening to this is just such good stuff. Hearing about your, Mark, I couldn't be happier to hear about this, like another welcome, wonderful addition to the, to the canon of your career and your artistry. And, I'm just really glad whenever you mention and, have these opportunities where people, either by your your own hard work, because no one, you've earned all this stuff yourself. You've really, you work your butt off more than just about anyone I've ever known. You really embody the Midwestern work ethic of doing it yourself and, with the help of some of your friends, if need be. But, you're one of the first people to always contribute and, but you always believe in, no one's going to write your plays but you. No one's going to write those screenplays but you. No one's going to make those films. No one's going to shoot those angles. No one's going to make those decisions if you don't do it. And that's a testament to your legacy, Mark. So I couldn't be prouder and happier for you. And so congratulations on another great addition to your to recognition of your work and stuff. And I wish I could be there, Mark, to see this exhibition.
I wish you could. But
man.
No, dude. There's always stuff. The point of it is, Gabe, is that when you were here and when you come back, it's always a trip. So what can you say, dude?
Well, Mark, I don't want to say too much on the air because I don't want to get too much into a side work. But I will be visiting sooner than later, and we're just firming up the details. So I'll see you sooner than later. I'll just put it that way.
Yay!
We'll talk about it soon. Anyway, I wanted to get to Mark. I'm so glad you brought up this Trem novella. So another book that I've mentioned on here before, but Eyes Wide Open, which I never finished. I have it in my collection. I read about half of it, and it just got lost in the shuffle of some of those summers when you have like you've always said, like 7, 8, 9, 20, 30 books going at the same time. And sometimes, there's I often find that the best book that I'm reading, I usually, that's the one that takes me a couple of years to finish because I just, it's like the prose is just so delicious. The content is just so rich that I almost want to reserve it for when I really, just keeping it on the side, buried under about 7 other really good books, 2 of which, it's like you never even opened to the first page. But, man, on those nice evenings when you just are like, no, I'm treating myself. I'm going back to this delicious prose, this wonderful intellectual journey. But yeah, Eyes Wide Open is definitely one of those books that just takes you on a cinematic journey of the creative process of work. And working with Stanley Kubrick, who is one of the unparalleled masters of the cinematic form, really just had a thorough, complete, almost like a God-given, like a born with ability to understand cinema and photography. And that book really goes into the simplicity, not the complexity, but the simplicity of his process of the fact that he didn't do things unless they were done. He did not say, that's good, we're finished, let's move on, or that's the way it's going to be, unless it was. And yes, people talk about this laborious, long process of doing things over and over, takes again and again, shooting things. And that's part of it, but a lot of it was that Kubrick took a lot of time off from movies. He was not always working on movies 24/7. He had a lot of unfinished projects when he died that he would research very thoroughly. He read I think 150, close to 200 books that were out of print just for for his unfinished Holocaust project, which Steven Spielberg is very gratefully picking up again. The paper, the Anderson Papers, I think it's called. But there was this huge mini-series that Kubrick was working on that was potentially for HBO, and then he was going to turn into a film. Napoleon was another project that he was working on for many years, which he read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books, and consulted dozens and dozens of scholars, and talked to first person scholars, had these elaborate conversations with experts. I can only imagine with the transcripts of those phone calls how just wonderfully, deliciously intoxicating that stuff is. But yeah, this was a guy who just knew what he wanted and was extremely intelligent, and just did not accept subpar work, and just needed people to do their best as he saw fit, because he was given this sort of unlimited, unprecedented contract by Warner Brothers Pictures to basically do whatever he wanted. He was given sort of the genius contract is what they refer to it. Christopher Nolan has the same contract. He's allowed final cut, even in the case of content, whereas the one clause that was in the contract was in the case of NC-17, which he ran into with Eyes Wide Shut. Nolan has the same contract where he's basically allowed to pick any subject matter, any content, make any film he wants, and he's given almost an unlimited budget because of how much money and the fact that he's just almost universally considered a gifted filmmaker. I wouldn't put him on the same ladder of genius as Kubrick, but Kubrick's films weren't always profitable, but because they were so universally lauded as important works of art, both visually, narratively, and just as time grew, they were just looked at as major cornerstones of the humanities and of culture. Warner Brothers just said, even if we lose money on his films, contributing and having these films under our name is more important than whether we make money or not. And in the long run, from a business point of view, there's no way that these films are always going to remain unprofitable, which with Full Metal Jacket, due to rentals and film licensing and VHS sales and television rights to HBO over the years, and the fact that film continues to sell digital copies on on Amazon and stuff like that, that film has finally retained a profit, as has Eyes Wide Shut. As much as people like to talk about the fact that his later films were flops, and he wasn't he didn't have the Hitchcockian sense of knowing what the public wanted and stuff.
Wait, Gabe, wait a second. You mean Kubrick, Eyes Wide Shut, dude, Full Metal Jacket, The Shining, Barry Lyndon.
Great film.
Dude,
great film.
In chronological reverse order. So we shouldn't even use that kind of word to describe them, because they were all immensely aesthetically successful, and economically is immaterial here in retrospect.
It's completely immaterial.
I mean, it's material to the people wanting their dough back, obviously, and I 100% respect that, and that's very necessary for that to occur. But we should definitely not describe those films in those terms, man, because they all are aesthetically masterful.
I think those are his best films, personally. The stuff that he made later on when he really was able to focus his camera and really hold an attention span, and he really was focused in on the larger picture of what a film can do. If you look at those films as almost like a single film, especially like if you look at The Shining and Full Metal Jacket and Eyes Wide Shut, sort of as a trilogy of films, or almost as one continuous film, I really don't see a separation between the styles of the three in some ways, the way that he, his use of camera, his tracking shots, the way that he focuses on the subject, the way he uses medium-wide shots, and the way that there's questions that don't have answers, intentional questions that appear to not have deliberate answers for the audience, and the way that that seems to offer up a much more satisfying set of ideas and principles, not just about the film you're watching, but about film as a whole. His films are just so deliciously open-ended, but his earlier work has almost like the caricature type quality that really annoys me with Woody Allen's earlier work, almost like a cutesy show-offy quality. Lolita has always, I mean, it's a great film, but there's certain elements of Lolita that strike me as very cutesy. There's certain recurring motifs and certain uses of humor in Dr. Strangelove that feel a little disingenuous, almost like some of Arthur Penn's use of humor in some of his films.
Right.
But,
wait, didn't he do Little Big Man?
Little Big Man is in some ways Arthur Penn's best film, and in other ways it's
Oh yeah,
his worst film.
I'm like watching that film and I'm thinking, what is this dude doing, man?
I grew up with that movie. I've seen it probably like 2 or 3 times. Some of the comical sequences are just fall flat, very flat. But there's sequences in that film that I absolutely love. Arthur Penn is not for everyone. His style of fluxing and flipping between genres, especially the way he used comedy, it either completely works or it completely doesn't. And so when people say that they don't like Bonnie and Clyde and they really don't like it, there's no means of saying, oh, just rewatch it and I want you to look for this and this and this. It's really a valid argument, because if those comedy tropes don't work, they just don't work. And Bonnie and Clyde's just a film that's always worked for me. I like the rhythm, I like the pacing, I like the cinematography, and I love the audacity of it, I guess, more than anything. And Little Big Man has a lot of audacity too, but in its time it was it's a very mainstream art film, a film that felt very geared towards a liberal white middle class audience. And it still stinks of that, but not all those things are necessarily a bad smell, nor is it necessarily a stench, but there definitely is somewhat of an odor that comes off of that film at times that feels a little phony. And Stanley Kubrick's early work kind of has a smell of occasional phoniness to me. It has like a whiz kid show-off quality, which that's what really annoys me with Christopher Nolan's work, is this whiz kid show-off stuff. It just does nothing for me. When other people are really, when people are really impressed by his work, there's nothing really there's nothing to disagree with, because as a technical wizard and as a storyteller, he's really amazing. He's almost an unrivaled entertainer in some ways in terms of contemporary cinema, because no one else is making films like Dunkirk that have a sort of technical precision and are shooting film, like besides a handful of other filmmakers that are shooting on film and shooting films that look as good on film and are declaring, no, I am going to shoot on film because I love the way that my films look when I shoot them on film, and I want to shoot them on film. And his films have like this real golden age type precision. I mean, he loves making films, and it comes through. He has these really pronounced characters. He has this real loud dialogue. He has these really sharp action sequences. But we talked about Dunkirk last week, so I'm not going to get too far into that. But man, the more I thought about that film, the more it annoyed me. Ever since we discussed it on the show last week. even more so the more I thought about the cantankerous use of expository dialogue in contrast with really the valid artistry of other parts of the film. It just really felt almost like hodgepodge and phony. But in some ways, it's just a good old-fashioned adventure war film, much like a lot of the studio films that came out of the Hollywood canon in the mid 1940s. Air Force, I would say, which is the film Air Force from 1943, which is one of Howard Hawks' best films, would be a definite model that I would say it follows. It follows very sharply, almost propagandistic. In fact, I wouldn't say almost. I would say definitely almost verging on this sort of one-note propaganda of the greatest generation, which I just get tired of that too. I just feel like we're like that's almost being sung for the sake of the fact that there's like some song to sing. Like, man, there's so many songs to sing in the world.
Well, I want to add one thing about the greatest generation. Obviously, World War II was a call to arms, undoubtedly.
Mm-hmm.
But I have no sympathy for the Depression, because instead of doing what those people reading the Bible should have done, was to be fair to everyone. They invested in the money market so heavily that it collapsed, so they brought it upon themselves, and I have zero sympathy for anyone involved in that. And this has been for decades, I've thought that it's like you brought that on yourself, because back then it was especially very heavy-handed with the Bible and all of that stuff, which clearly tells you, man, to help the poor out, to be equal and all of that stuff. And the cause of the Depression was the money market, which
Great.
Jesus came in and destroyed a couple thousand years ago. So I have zero sympathy for the Depression. Zero. They brought it upon themselves, and they got what they were asking for. They could have used that money to help each other out instead. And unfortunately, yeah. So I mean, the rich suffered too, obviously. So I don't look at it as like these poor guys. Well, you built a house of cards, man, and it collapsed.
Absolutely. So this past week, I went on some more cinematic journeys than I normally do, and I should say I finished more. I went on more stops than I really was anticipating, and logged in some good hours, and really took my mind to some really entertaining and unexpected places. Finally got around to watching Krisha, which is a wonderful, wonderful film that I read about at the South by Southwest Film Festival 2.5 years ago, which won the Audience Award, won the Grand Jury Prize, and I would say it's shot in the sort of post-Cassavetes style, very similar. Uses an ensemble cast, almost like non-actors, almost like extremely trained professional, almost non-acting. Like people just so immersed in their roles and just so immersed in their character, like you forget it just literally feels almost like this, like a theater troupe. And the story follows a woman who comes from who's sort of abandoned her family for what may be decades, and sort of gone on this hippie wandering substance abuse journey of her mind, and has all this new age philosophy to fuse with everyone, and it's just obvious that she's just a total crumbling wreck of a human being, just like desperately uttering this sort of liberal nonsense left and right. Not that I think that like liberalism is nonsense, but that she just like utters this like hold hands and we'll fix everything sort of stuff to cover up her own deep rooted issues. And the film feels like it's both a document of real events and like a really well shot, really well put together fictionalization of something novelistic and real at the same time. I was just stunned by this film, and I watched it with someone who was equally stunned. We were just left speechless at the end of it. I was like, I don't want to say I was sobbing at the end of it, because I wasn't making a noise. I was just haunted by this film for days. It's on Amazon Prime for streaming, but it left a huge impression at the South by Southwest Film Festival 2 years ago, where it won these 2 awards, and I wrote it on my list dutifully and thought, well, I really hope to come across this film someday, and kind of forgot about it. And then I saw it, the other day and had noticed it on my master list a handful of times, and the name always stuck out at me, Krisha, Krisha. And I kept wondering, what is this film? I know I read about it, and I know it was in most of the critic notebooks of films that were at the South by Southwest that year as one of the major achievements of any of the films there, in that it was not very stylized. It had these, like, it was almost like non-filmmaking where, like, the camera is just following these actors, and there's all, like, what appears to possibly be improvisation or just extremely tight scripting and an extremely well-rehearsed group of actors that just appear to, be living in their characters. And the whole film takes place within this large, sprawling suburban home over the course of an extremely uncomfortable Thanksgiving. But, oh, man, when I was thinking about it, like, whose style does this film remind me of? And I was like, well, it's this guy's own style. It doesn't have to be a reference point to someone else's filmmaking. That's ridiculous. But if I had to pick a reference point, Cassavetes all the way in terms of, like, a woman under the influence type, just deep, uncomfortable, but really engaging filmmaking where you're watching someone just fall apart on the screen, and you're watching like a real examination of things that happen in real life, but you're also watching cinema, of course. You're watching a fake movie with phony people, but at the end of the film, there were these moments that I could really relate to. There were these deeply haunting, really dark scenes that just left such a searing impression on me. I was really haunted by this film for days, and could not shake it from my mind. Undoubtedly one of the best films that was released like actually released. It was made years ago, but it was actually released formally last year. Powerful, unforgettable work of art, and a true worthwhile film, worth seeing and worth studying, worth discussing, and worth even seeing again. Very, very, very glad I got to see that movie.
And that's Krisha you're talking about?
Krisha, yes.
Yeah, I'll check that out, my man.
Oh man, Mark, I was watching. I was thinking of you too. I was thinking of you and Zav, and I was like, man, it made me wish that Zav was on the show this week, and so like the three of us could discuss it almost in like a round table, because it's such naked filmmaking, and it's just stuff that I'm really hungry for. After watching these, like we've talked about, these big Hollywood spectacles of editing and just the Hollywood machine, it's the thousands of people that work, thousands and thousands of people that work on every movie that comes out, whether it's an independent film or these big super films, these big video game movies, just the amount of man hours and time and money that goes into all this stuff and the finished product. And I'm left, like subjectively just completely empty and numb, almost like I've just taken a part of myself and thrown it into the trash or something.
Oh no.
I just less and more every year, Mark. I just watch less and less junk every year, and I feel knowingly expose myself to less junk where I know I'm going in to watch something mainstream and halfway forgettable. I just want
you're operating with discretion. Increased discretion.
It is just, time is too short. Life, I'm sorry, time is short in a lifetime, and there's something just clicked this last year, and it just, man, life is too short life is just too short to waste it on bad films or reading. Welcome
aboard.
Books.
Thank you. Welcome aboard.
It is just not worth it. So with that being said, I actually ended up watching some lengthy films that one of which I was told repeatedly by two fans of the show and a friend of mine that I have to check it out. And I was sort of, well, okay, I'll engage it. I'll see what's going on here. Man, was my reluctance completely undeserved. So The Defiant Ones, which is a documentary on HBO. It's a 6 hour, I believe it's 6 hours. It might be 7 hours. Documentary on HBO about the rise of Dr. Dre and Interscope Records, and basically the history of pop music in the 1990s and in the 2000s, and its impact on our culture, of rising stars, of the new wave of talent, of the sound of the early 90s, Nine Inch Nails, Primus, Dr. Dre, a lot of threads of alternative music becoming mainstream. I cannot possibly explain how entertaining and how engaging and how worthwhile this film is. Alan Hughes, who was one of the great filmmakers of the 90s, Menace to Society, which is just a caustic, unrelenting urban film, one of the best films about city life, street life ever made. I'd put it right up there with any of the street films from the 1970s. Has made yet another great documentary without his brother. Usually the Hughes brothers make films together, but Alan made this film on his own, and the cinematography, the use of archival footage, and the lack. And Mark, I'm really glad that you stated earlier about the use of almost like bullet points use of music in nonfiction filmmaking. It just, with the exception of the subjects that they're talking about, almost completely abstains away from using soundtrack music or filler, because the content, not just the information, because the information is just full and immense and rich, but it's the dynamic of the fact that the talking heads' voices push the film. That is the soundtrack. That is the momentum. It's the energy and the sustenance of the film, the life of the film. I was blown away by this movie, and I was so glad that I watched it.
And Gabe, what is the title of this film?
It's called The Defiant Ones, and it's a documentary about the rise of Interscope Records against all odds. So the guy that formed Interscope Records, Tony, I can't remember his last name. He's a major pop figure. He's only second to Rick Rubin in terms of his influence on major music that took over not only the airwaves but
is it Iovine? How do you say Iovine? Am I thinking about?
Yes, Tommy Iovine. Yes,
yeah, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but
Tony Iovine.
I read the review, I believe, in the Times.
Yep, it's a stunningly entertaining film.
Oh, Gabe, I got to see that. I just love stuff like that.
Well,
Thank you.
And like the first half of the film goes through his rise in the music industry, discussing producing Tom Petty's 2 best albums, Stevie Nicks' first solo album, going into being Bob Seger's producer, taking time off from music, and then bringing Dr. Dre, being the person who released Dr. Dre's Chronic album. Man, just the small obstacles of their journey, just the human drama of nonfiction filmmaking. So often when I watch great documentaries, especially social documentaries about entertainment, about filmmakers, movies about filmmakers, movies about musicians, movies about producers, movies about writers.
Yes.
That stuff I live for that. That is entertainment for me, and that is as good as art gets for me at some points. But reading some great plays, watching some great nonfiction films, and cooking, and then eating some good food with your friends and your family, man, that is as good as life gets.
Yeah, Gabe, I think you're right, and I think it can even get better. Is that correct, sir?
About what?
I don't know. Try it again.
Well, Mark, 2 other films that I went on the journey with this week.
Okay.
Both of which have to do with the fall of the Berlin Wall. Oddly enough, I didn't know that there was a connection here. So, I've been dying to watch Karl Marx City. It's a film I read about. It's a film I read about in the New York Times and on the AV Club, and had read about in another publication as one of the best documentaries of the year so far. This really interesting mix of first person filmmaking, journalism, investigation, and subjective filmmaking. It's about a woman's investigation into whether her father was a member of the Stasi, the East German police force. Basically the Gestapo of East Germany during the height of the Cold War, during all of the Cold War, I should say. And so it's a relentless investigation into what the Stasi is, which is just basically a historical recap. And it looks like her father was the type of person that she knew her father to be, and the type of person that these files, which the Stasi files are within reason and under a certain pretext available to be viewed by certain people under certain circumstances, that you are allowed, like if you have certain connection to a certain person, you're allowed to look to get certain access into certain files, which
What's the name of that film, Gabe? Other People's Lives? That's a good one.
No, oh no, that's another great film. That's called Stories We Tell.
No, yeah, there's another one. It's dealing with the Eastern Bloc and
The Lives of Others.
The Lives of Others.
Lives of Others.
Which is a fiction film from 2000, which this film actually discusses. At one point, it interviews numerous people that are experts on Cold War politics and people that worked with the experts on the Stasi that say that film is ridiculous because it is such an inaccurate portrait of what the Stasi was actually like, and the fact that no one it's huge. I mean, I'm a big fan of The Lives of Others because it's such a well written, well directed, and well executed film, and it's a powerfully touching film. But its depiction of East German life is completely inaccurate because it doesn't nail the paranoia. In fact, it is the reason that there's not one case of one Stasi officer, investigator, interrogator, wiretapper breaking the conduct code is that there were so many layers of investigation upon everyone. It was and they talk about Orwell's 1984, where there is no absence of the new truth, where everyone investigates to some degree and everyone is aware of the fact that there's probably some level of investigation. 1 out of 3 people are an informant. 1 out of, I think it was 25 people are directly involved in the Stasi. So reality itself was not only controlled but predicted. And it was, of all the societies underneath the Cold War, in the Cold War, under this extreme form of communism and control, East Germany achieved a sort of relentless, steadfast quality of control where there was so much information and knowledge about just the monotonous everyday life of the ordinary person that it could almost be predicted to a mathematical formula. And whenever there were aberrations or whenever the formula changed or whenever people's behavior shifted, they could almost predict why and what it was going to lead to.
And I want to say, I think somebody wants to ask you a question about that.
About what?
So it's a very interesting film. Karl Marx City, highly recommended documentary that I thoroughly enjoyed. But what it was a side project, what it also is an interesting companion piece to, if you're looking for a nonfiction and a fiction counterpart, is Atomic Blonde in the theater, which I was not looking forward to seeing.
Good work, Gabe.
But I dutifully went to go see it. When you're in relationships, when you have friends, you go see movies you don't always want to see.
You were caught in the socio-political tapestry, but you seems like you were a winner nonetheless.
But I'll tell you, I was shocked. I was incredulous. I couldn't believe it. I was completely baffled. But Atomic Blonde is one of the most entertaining films I've seen in a while. It's well made. It's well directed. It's well written. It's fun. It's audacious. It's got great acting. It's got it's just all around a great piece of entertainment. It's modern and contemporary, but it's also very classic, and it has a restraint while at the same time being completely over the top.
Gabe, this is exciting news, and I only see a few films a year at the Popular Cinema, but that is one of them that I decided that I'm going to go see. And Gabe, you're only confirming this gut instinct sentiment.
Yes.
Of course, it's backed by the New York Times. It's backed by many prestigious institutes. Now, I know this man is suffering hearing that, but if you want to weigh in?
Not really. This is Steve. I don't want to horn in on your show. I did see one terrific film this week, one that you haven't maybe had a chance to see. I finally got around to seeing Detroit. Now, I know it's a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Well, not actually.
It's a Catherine Bigelow film, so, there's a high caliber of likelihood that it's going to be pretty good.
Well, it was Well, okay, on a comparative basis, I thought it was much better put together than Dunkirk, and a lot more exciting. Of course, it's a different type of movie, but she has a way of, of course, these days everybody does this fast editing, so you never know what the hell you're watching. But she doesn't do that. She has a lot of little vignettes, but each vignette stands out. Somebody's throwing a firebomb in a building, somebody's being shot, somebody's looting, and she gets all those details. I would say the first 40 minutes of the film is truly outstanding as a social documentary. But then she decides that she wants to have a storyline, so she gets involved in this very famous case at the
Algiers Motel.
At the Algiers Motel, yes, about the blacks being tormented by the cop. I do believe her version of it is probably accurate. I think all that happened. However, she spends a lot of time on that because she wanted a story. So while the film is terrific all the way through, and I like her approach to film editing, to directing. I like the way she pieces movies together. And in very much a contemporary sense, a sense I would not ordinarily care for, but she's the exception. There's always an exception. But it does kind of level off a little bit. And I wish she hadn't spent quite as much time on the court case at the end. But it's a very fine film, head and shoulders above anything else I think released this year. But I haven't seen them all, so I would never want to debate that. But I don't feel very debatable this evening.
Yeah, Steve, I kind of like your style because you go to the cinema, you enjoy it. You're
some of them.
You're immensely involved in the cinematic world. In fact, it's all encompassing, essentially. And you bring that enthusiasm. I mean, that almost airtight enthusiasm to the table. And that's why we always appreciate your presence.
Thank you. Well, I don't like to comment on movies unless I've
do.
seen them. I have to see them first. Now, once I see them, then I form an opinion, and my opinion stays the same unless I choose to vary it.
Hey, Mark,
sir.
Anyway,
I'm really glad you brought up Columbus because I'm thoroughly looking forward to going to see that. Taylor Sheridan, who was the screenwriter of Sicario.
Great article in Sunday's paper on him.
Absolutely, there was. Thoroughly entertaining, extremely well written. Taylor Sheridan, who wrote Hell or High Water, who wrote Sicario, film. Exactly, has finally written and directed his own film. So we have Wind River to look forward to with Jeremy Northam in the title role, who's one of the great contemporary actors. Jeremy Piven in the title role. Great contemporary actor. Really looking forward to that one. It's gotten outstanding reviews across the board. Who knows what the film is actually like, but I thoroughly anticipate seeing Wind River and Columbus, both of which those are definitely outlined on the list.
Steve, you're shrugging. You gotta pick up Friday's paper, my man, and then you won't be out of the loop.
Well, the thing is that, I hate to put it this way, there's so few films that really appeal to me that I'll try anything if somebody recommends a film.
You're like Mikey. Mikey likes it.
But I don't especially know if I'd want to see the thing by Sicario. Atomic Blonde doesn't seem like it'll be my bag. But on the other hand, if there's an audience for that and people like it, and you seem to like it, I'm sure it has its qualities. I don't feel very argumentative today. I saw two films I liked. One I especially liked. I still am not fully over Detroit, a remarkably fine film.
You're still feeling its resonance.
Yeah, and so I'm... But as far as, I'm not sure what I'll see next. There's something out called 13 Minutes about an assassin attempt on Hitler, which sounds sort of intriguing because it's made by the same director who did the German film Downfall, which I kind of admired. But movies
Downfall is a really well-made film.
It is. But with movies, it's a crapshoot. You can have a good film by a good director. The next one could be lousy. So I just play around. It depends what I run into.
Right, you lead a wild life. Let's just put it that way.
Well, I don't go to as many movies as I used to. Then I don't get around that well. So
you're doing just fine. You're here right now.
Well,
I mean, Steve, let's be honest. You're in the game. You're in the game more than most people. I mean, you've been in the game for decades, and you're still standing strong. You're to be admired. Your tenacity is an achievement.
Well, actually, I've not seen many of the films that Gabe was referring to.
Well, you've seen more than most. I mean, you're a warrior. You're in the ring.
I'm not even sure what I'm going to see next.
Well,
this wild river.
It'll be a surprise.
There's nothing but options.
We got a man in a stairwell. So, yeah, I mean, life is a great opportunity. I think Gabe and Steve Spice, Gabe Van Handel and Steve Spice are just great cineastes. These are people that move forward frame by frame with some of the greatest amount of enthusiasm. I actually got yelled at for some of my tweets at More to Scarier being so general that I get all of these likes. And yeah, of course, it's preconceived, but it's not worth being yelled at. I mean, it's just like, I'm like, oh, the world is great, live your life, be strong, and and people like, and I got yelled at for that. So that's hilarious, man. I mean, for real.
I yeah.
Oh man, what a life it is, man. And I'll tell you another thing too. So after the show, you got to log it in and all of that stuff, and then there'll be some exchanges with Steve, just general stuff.
Just a few.
Right. No, that's okay. And then, I just go back and I'll just read a book and pass out to a radio drama. And then tomorrow morning, the book review, then I got to get to all of the work at hand. And, it's like a tidal wave,
Mark,
but it's doable. But, Gabe, it seems like you've got to get some say in there.
So we have a long time on again, off again listener, good friend of mine.
Yes.
Who refers to Steve as Godot. So.
Oh yes. but in this case, Godot does appear, man.
Well,
and he's here to testify.
Yeah.
Steve Godot.
No, dude. Where it as opposed to waiting for Godot, you do make the appearance at the tail end. So
well,
I mean, it's
not
like this like non-existent galvanizing
I don't want to compromise
voice,
your show,
but you are on the scene, definitely.
Waiting. Okay, well, thank you.
Well, Elvis is in the house. Let's put it that way. So, okay, gentlemen, we have we're just out of time. Gabe, we want to thank you. Steve Spice, we want to thank you. You boys have a great night. How does that sound?
Thank you, guys.
Fine, thank you.
And, okay, well, listeners, thank you for listening to Cinema Fireside. And I will say that we are blessed to have these on-stage, in-person appearances by Steve Spice. These are out of the blue. These are not preconceived. These are wondrous little gifts underneath the Christmas tree. Steve is loving hearing this stuff. You can comment, but your mic's off. Gabe, again, you have such strength. And, I mean, you consistently, you go to bat, you hit home runs. Your knowledge is expansive, and we are very fortunate to be bestowed with that. What I'm doing right now is I'm looking at the clipboard, and at 7:59 I have to read certain things. So I'm just looking now with 18 seconds left. Say no to others, say yes to your life, but always be helpful in a real way. Hanging around doing nothing helps no one. But helping people move, or your good friends, this, that, the other thing, always makes for the greatest difference in the world. We will be on at the same time next week on WXR WLP 104.1 FM Milwaukee. To hear past episodes, visit riverwestradio.com/shows and click Cinema Fireside.